The breaking point. The Galactic Trade Assembly had governed commerce and diplomacy across 40 star systems for nearly 2,000 years. 7 founding species created the organization to promote peaceful exchange and mutual prosperity. Over centuries, dozens of younger races joined, each bringing their unique contributions to the collective wealth of known space. Humanity arrived at the Assembly's doors 70 years ago. They came in modest ships, speaking words of friendship and cooperation. The elder species found them curious. Humans seemed eager to learn, quick to adapt, and remarkably peaceful for a species that had unified their homeworld through countless conflicts. The Assembly accepted humanity's membership application, granting them junior status with limited voting rights. In the decades that followed, humans proved themselves valuable members. They excelled at logistics and organization. Human traders moved goods efficiently across vast distances. Human engineers solved problems others had ignored for generations. Human diplomats worked tirelessly to mediate minor disputes between member species. The Assembly grew comfortable with humanity's presence, viewing them as useful subordinates who knew their place in the galactic order. Captain Rachel Morrison commanded the merchant vessel Horizon's Dream. She transported medical supplies between Assembly worlds, a routine job that paid modest wages and asked little excitement. Rachel liked the work. It gave her time to read, to think, to watch stars pass by her viewport during long journeys through the void. Station Meridian orbited a gas giant in the Kethros system. The station served as a major trading hub, home to 50,000 beings from across the Assembly. 3,000 humans lived on Meridian, working as traders, technicians, and service providers. They occupied a specific district, following local regulations that restricted where humans could live and work. The trouble began over a contract dispute. A human shipping company underbid a Kethros firm for a lucrative transport route. The Kethros Corporation complained to local authorities, claiming humans were violating trade protocols by offering unfairly low prices. The station administration investigated and found no legal violations. The human company had simply operated more efficiently. The Kethros Corporation was not satisfied. They had influence with the planetary government. They had connections throughout the station's power structure. They wanted the contract and they wanted humans punished for their presumption. 2 weeks after the ruling, violence erupted in the human district. A mob attacked human businesses, claiming they were retaliating for economic crimes. Station security responded slowly, arriving only after significant damage had occurred. 15 humans died in the violence. 40 more suffered serious injuries. The mob destroyed 24 businesses and damaged residential areas. When order was finally restored, the station administrator issued a statement calling the incident unfortunate but understandable given the economic tensions. No arrests were made. No compensation was offered. Rachel heard the news while docked at a distant station. She watched the reports with growing disbelief. The images showed shattered windows, burned shops, and covered bodies being carried from the wreckage. The Assembly's response was worse than the attack itself. The Grand Council convened to discuss the incident. They expressed regret for the loss of life but ultimately sided with the Kethros authorities. The Council's statement was carefully worded. It acknowledged that violence was regrettable but noted that humans needed to be more sensitive to local economic concerns. It suggested that humans should accept restrictions on their business activities to prevent future tensions. It recommended that human populations on assembly stations be more carefully monitored to avoid similar incidents. The message was clear. Human lives mattered less than avoiding inconvenience for elder species. Ambassador David Chin represented humanity on the Grand Council. He was a patient man who had spent 20 years building relationships with assembly leaders. He spoke eloquently about justice and equal treatment. He presented evidence of the conspiracy behind the violence. He demanded accountability. The other council members listened politely. Then they voted to take no action. The decision was 15-1 with only humanity opposing. Chin returned to the human delegation headquarters that evening. He drafted a message to Earth, explaining what had happened and what it meant. He did not sleep that night. None of the human diplomats did. They understood that something fundamental had broken. For 70 years, humanity had believed in the assembly's principles. They had trusted that civilized species would protect each other, that laws would apply equally, that membership meant something beyond economic exploitation. Earth's response arrived 2 weeks later. The message was brief, delivered by the Secretary-General of United Earth. It contained no threats, no angry demands, no emotional appeals. It simply stated that humanity was withdrawing from the Galactic Trade Assembly, effective immediately. All human personnel in assembly space would return home. All trade agreements were terminated. All diplomatic relations were suspended indefinitely. The message ended with a single sentence that would echo through assembly corridors for years to come. Humanity will remember this decision. The withdrawal happened with startling speed. Human ships departed from stations across assembly space. Human traders liquidated their assets and left. Human workers resigned from their positions and went home. Human diplomats packed their offices and departed without ceremony. Within 3 months, every human in assembly territory had vanished. The Assembly Council initially dismissed the withdrawal as an emotional reaction. Humans would calm down, they reasoned. Economic pressure would force them to negotiate. No species could afford to isolate themselves from galactic commerce. They would return soon, probably with apologies, certainly with requests to rejoin under revised terms. Months passed. No requests came. Ambassador Chen's replacement never arrived. Human space remained closed to all assembly traffic. Ships that approached human borders received automated warnings to turn back. Those that ignored the warnings simply disappeared, their distress signals cutting off abruptly. The assembly tried to send diplomatic missions. The ships returned with their crews intact but reported the same message. Humanity had nothing to say. Inside the assembly, economic disruption spread like disease. Human traders had filled crucial logistics roles. Their absence created gaps that others struggled to fill. Shipping routes that humans managed fell into chaos. Supply chains collapsed. Prices rose. Member species began blaming each other for the crisis. Director Vex of the Assembly Security Council studied reports with growing concern. She was Kethros herself, a detail that now embarrassed her. The data showed something impossible. Human space was buzzing with activity, but none of it made sense according to known patterns. Massive energy signatures appeared around every human world. Construction on a scale that defied comprehension was detected throughout their territory. Most disturbing were the quantum distortions, signs of technology that should not exist. Vex requested intelligence assessments from assembly analysts. They provided carefully worded reports suggesting that humans were building defensive installations. Nothing threatening, they assured her. Just nervous species protecting themselves after leaving the assembly's security umbrella. Vex did not believe them. She had fought in wars before politics claimed her. She recognized military preparation when she saw it. The assembly sent probes into human space, hoping to gather better intelligence. The probes never returned. Every single one vanished without trace. The technology required to detect and destroy small automated probes before they could transmit data was sophisticated. Far more sophisticated than anything in assembly databases about human capabilities. Either humans had been hiding their true technology level for 70 years, or they had made impossible advances in mere months. Vex presented her findings to the Grand Council. She explained the evidence. She outlined the implications. She recommended immediate diplomatic outreach before the situation escalated further. The council members listened. Then they explained why she was wrong. Humans were building defensive positions because they were afraid, they argued. The withdrawal was political theater meant to extract concessions. The disappearing probes were probably malfunctions, not defensive actions. Vex should not imagine threats where none existed. But Vex could not shake her unease. She had spent decades studying military patterns across dozens of species. Every instinct she possessed screamed warning. Something was building in human space. Something dangerous. Something that would change everything. She increased patrols near human borders. She reviewed defensive protocols. She tried to prepare for threats she could not yet define. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, the last piece of evidence arrived. A merchant ship that had ignored border warnings managed to enter human space before vanishing. Before contact was lost, it transmitted fragmentary data. The images showed construction beyond anything the assembly had attempted. Hundreds of shipyards surrounded Earth alone. Thousands of vessels were under construction, each one massive, each one clearly designed for warfare. The ship's sensors detected energy weapons that matched nothing in known technology databases. The final transmission showed human ships approaching before the signal died. The Grand Council convened emergency session. They reviewed the intelligence. They discussed options. Some members argued for military action, suggesting they should destroy human shipyards before humans finished whatever they were building. Others advocated negotiation, proposing they offer concessions to restore relations. A few simply wanted to wait, believing humans would eventually calm down and return to rational behavior. None of them understood what they had done. None of them grasped the fundamental mistake they had made. They had seen human patience and mistaken it for weakness. They had witnessed human cooperation and assumed it meant submission. They had observed 70 years of peaceful behavior and concluded that humans were incapable of anything else. They forgot that peace is a choice, not an inability. They forgot that the most dangerous beings are those who could destroy you but choose not to. They forgot that patience has limits. Humanity had reached its limit. The assembly would soon learn what happens when you teach peaceful beings that mercy is a mistake. They would discover what humans become when forgiveness is exhausted. They would understand, finally and terribly, that the species which had offered friendship for 70 years possessed capabilities they had deliberately hidden, hoping never to need them. The message humanity had promised to remember was being written. Not in words but in fire and steel. Not in appeals to justice but in demonstrations of power. The assembly expected negotiation. They would get something entirely different. They would get humanity's answer, and that answer would light the stars aflame. The message. The assembly's central command station floated in neutral space between member worlds. The structure had witnessed centuries of diplomatic achievements, trade agreements, and peaceful resolutions. Today it would witness something entirely different. Director Vex stood in the operations center watching sensor displays with mounting dread. The readings made no sense according to everything she knew about physics and military doctrine. 300 human ships had appeared simultaneously at 12 different locations across assembly space. Not near borders where they might have traveled conventionally, but deep inside assembly territory at critical infrastructure points. The technology required for such precise long-range deployment was theoretical. Every species in the assembly had tried to develop it. None had succeeded. Yet here were human vessels, appearing from nowhere, positioned with perfect tactical precision around military installations, communication hubs, and government centers. They had not fired a single shot. They simply waited, their presence alone screaming threat. Commander Thorell of the Assembly Defense Fleet tried to mount a response. He ordered ships to intercept the human vessels. The closest Assembly warship reached human positions within 20 minutes. It was the Vigilant Dawn, a heavy cruiser representing the finest military technology the Assembly possessed. The ship carried 400 crew members, veterans of a dozen border conflicts. Vigilant Dawn approached the human ships near the Kethros homeworld. Captain MEV ordered her crew to battle stations. She opened a communication channel, demanding the humans identify themselves and explain their presence. The response came immediately. A human face appeared on her screen, a woman wearing a military uniform that Vex had never seen before. The woman spoke calmly. "I am Fleet Commander Sarah Okonkwo of the Terran Defense Initiative. Your vessel is outmatched. Power down your weapons and withdraw to a safe distance. This is your only warning." Captain MEV felt anger rise in her chest. A single human ship dared threaten an assembly heavy cruiser. She cut the transmission and ordered her weapons officer to target the nearest human vessel. What happened next lasted 4 seconds. The human ship did not move. It simply existed, and existing was apparently enough. A beam of coherent energy struck Vigilant Dawn's forward shields. The shields, designed to withstand sustained bombardment, simply vanished. The beam continued through the ship's armor plating as though it were tissue paper. It carved through 3 decks, precisely destroying the main weapons array while somehow avoiding any crew quarters. Then it stopped. Captain MEV stared at her damage reports in shock. One shot had disabled her ship's entire offensive capability. The precision was impossible. The power requirements were absurd. Her chief engineer was shouting something about energy levels that exceeded theoretical maximums by orders of magnitude. MEV did the only rational thing. She ordered immediate retreat. Similar scenes played out across assembly space. Every military vessel that approached human ships received the same demonstration. Overwhelming technological superiority delivered with surgical precision. Humans disabled weapons, destroyed engines, or simply held position while assembly ships exhausted their ammunition against shields that seemed to absorb energy rather than resist it. Not a single assembly crew member died in these encounters. The humans were making a point, and the point was clear. They could kill everyone if they wished. They were choosing not to. Director Vex watched the reports flood in from every sector. Her worst fears were confirmed and exceeded. Humans had not just advanced their technology. They had leapfrogged every species in the assembly by decades, possibly centuries. The weapons they displayed, the shields they employed, the propulsion systems they used, all of it was beyond anything assembly scientists had theorized possible. The Grand Council convened an emergency session for the second time in a year. This time the mood was different. Fear replaced complacency. Ambassador Thren of the Kethros delegation was notably absent. He had fallen ill suddenly, though everyone understood he simply could not face what was coming. The chamber that had dismissed human concerns now filled with beings desperate to understand what they faced. Fleet Commander Okonkwo's face appeared on every screen in the chamber. She stood on what appeared to be a ship's bridge, though the technology visible behind her looked alien despite being human-made. Her expression was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its lack of emotion. She began speaking without preamble. Members of the Galactic Trade Assembly. 1 year ago, 15 humans died on Station Meridian. 40 more were injured. Your response was to blame the victims and suggest we should accept restrictions on our rights and freedoms. Your Grand Council voted that human lives were worth less than avoiding inconvenience for your elder species. You taught us that membership in your assembly meant nothing. That your principles were hollow. That your justice applied selectively. Okonkwo paused, letting the words settle. Humanity withdrew from your assembly not because we were afraid, but because we were disappointed. For 70 years, we believed in what you claimed to represent. We trusted that civilized species would protect each other. We hoped that we had found something better than the conflicts that marked our own history. You proved us wrong. The council chamber remained silent. What could they say? Every word Okonkwo spoke was true. They had made those decisions. They had expressed those attitudes. The record was clear and damning. Okonkwo continued. During our time in assembly space, we carefully limited the technology we displayed. We showed you enough to be useful but not enough to threaten. We hoped we would never need to reveal what we truly possessed. We hoped your civilization was worthy of trust. You failed that test. She gestured, and new images appeared on the screens. Shipyards around Earth, construction facilities on Mars, weapons platforms throughout human space. The scale was staggering. What you see represents 1 year of focused effort. We did not build this from nothing. We built it from carefully hidden reserves, from technology we developed but never deployed, from weapons we designed but hoped never to use. Every human world contributed. Every colony participated. Every citizen understood what was necessary. The images shifted to show human weapons in detail. Energy cannons that could crack planetary crust. Missile systems that moved faster than light itself. Defensive shields that converted incoming fire into power for their own systems. Propulsion technology that made distance meaningless. The assembly had nothing comparable. They had nothing that could even slow these systems down. We are not here to destroy you, Okonkwo said, and for the first time, emotion entered her voice. We are here to ensure you never make the same mistake again. We are here to deliver a message, and that message will be written clearly enough that no species will misunderstand it for generations to come. She outlined humanity's terms. They were harsh but not impossible. The assembly would establish new laws protecting the rights of all member species equally. No species could be designated as junior or lesser. No population could be sacrificed for political convenience. Every member would have equal voting rights regardless of how long they had belonged. Most importantly, humans would enforce these laws. The Terran Defense Initiative will maintain permanent presence in assembly space. We will monitor compliance with the new regulations. We will respond to any violations with immediate action. You will not negotiate these terms. You will not modify them. You will accept them completely, or you will face the alternative. The alternative was clear from the weapons humanity had displayed. Total military superiority. The ability to destroy any target anywhere in assembly space. The power to dismantle the entire structure of galactic governance if they chose. The assembly could accept human terms or cease to exist. Those were the only options. Council members argued among themselves. Some wanted to fight, claiming honor demanded resistance. Others saw the futility clearly. One species, dismissed as weak and naive just a year ago, now held absolute power over everything the assembly had built across 2 millennia. Pride demanded defiance, but survival demanded submission. Director Vex finally spoke. She had been silent throughout Okonkwo's presentation, watching and listening. Now she stood and addressed the council directly. We have no choice. Commander Okonkwo is offering terms that allow us to continue existing. She could simply destroy us. The fact that she chooses not to is more mercy than we showed her species. Vex looked directly at the screen showing Okonkwo. I vote to accept human terms without modification. I recommend all council members do the same. We created this situation through our own arrogance and injustice. Now we face the consequences. Let us at least face them with enough wisdom to survive. The vote was not unanimous. 5 council members refused to accept human authority. They cast negative votes, declaring they would rather fight than surrender. Okonkwo listened to their speeches without expression. When the voting concluded, she simply nodded. The majority has accepted. The terms are now in effect. Those who voted against will have 30 days to reconsider. After that, we will consider them hostile entities and respond accordingly. The threat was clear and credible. Within a week, all 5 dissenting members reversed their votes. Pride was worth less than existence. The new order was established. Humans did not occupy assembly space or claim territory. They simply maintained presence, watching and enforcing the laws they had written. Their ships patrolled trade routes. Their officers observed council sessions. Their representatives reviewed every significant decision. The assembly adapted slowly. Member species learned to follow regulations that applied equally to everyone. Disputes that once ended with stronger species dominating weaker ones now faced human arbitration. Trade practices that had exploited junior members were reformed or eliminated. The system became more just because humans forced it to be. Station Meridian underwent reconstruction. The human district was rebuilt, larger and better than before. A memorial stood where the violence had occurred, listing the names of those who died. Every species living on the station learned those names. They learned the story of what happened when injustice went unanswered. They learned that mercy has limits. 5 years after humanity's return, Ambassador Chin stood again in the Grand Council chamber. He was older now, his hair silver, his face marked by the weight of decisions made and consequences witnessed. He had watched humanity transform from peaceful traders to enforcers of galactic justice. He had helped write the terms that now governed assembly space. He carried the responsibility of that transformation. Director Vex approached him after a council session. They had developed a working relationship built on mutual respect rather than friendship. She had been one of the few assembly officials who recognized the danger before it arrived. "Do you ever regret what happened?" she asked quietly. "Do you wonder if there was another way?" Chin considered the question carefully. "Every day," he admitted. "We never wanted this. We came to the stars hoping to find something better than our own violent history. We offered friendship in good faith. But we learned an important lesson. Peace only works when everyone values it equally. When some beings see cooperation as weakness, when they view mercy as permission to exploit, then peace becomes surrender. He looked at the council chamber where representatives from dozens of species now debated as equals. We forced this system on you. We imposed justice through threat of destruction. That makes us uncomfortable. But the alternative was to accept that some lives matter less than others, that convenience justifies cruelty, that civilized species can choose injustice when it benefits them. We could not accept that. We will not accept it. Vex nodded slowly. You changed us. Not just our laws but how we think about power and responsibility. We ruled this galaxy for 2,000 years believing might made right, that elder species deserved privileges, that progress justified exploitation. You showed us we were wrong. The lesson was harsh, but perhaps it needed to be. Across assembly space, the changes continued. Younger species gained voices they never had before. Trade became more equitable. Justice applied more consistently. The system was not perfect. Humans did not create paradise. But they created something better than what existed before, and they enforced it with absolute determination. The memorial on Station Meridian became a pilgrimage site. Beings from across the assembly visited to read the names and learn the story. They learned what 15 deaths had cost the galaxy. They learned what happened when peaceful beings were pushed beyond forgiveness. They learned that humanity's patience was a choice, not a weakness, and that exhausting that patience had consequences. Humanity never forgave the assembly for what happened. They enforced justice, maintained order, and protected the weak. But they remembered Station Meridian. They remembered the casual cruelty, the convenient mathematics, the dismissive certainty that human lives mattered less. They remembered, and their memory burned like stars in the darkness. The message was written clearly now, carved into the structure of galactic civilization itself. Not in words that could be misunderstood or forgotten, but in the reality of daily life across 40 star systems. Justice was not optional. Mercy was earned, not assumed. And humanity would ensure no species ever again learned these lessons the way the assembly had, through fire and fear and the terrible realization that they had underestimated beings who chose peace but possessed the capacity for so much more. The stars themselves bore witness to what humanity had become. Not conquerors, not tyrants, but guardians who remembered injustice and refused to let it happen again. Their answer to betrayal lit those stars aflame, and the light would burn for generations, a permanent reminder that peaceful beings, when finally provoked beyond endurance, write their messages in fire that never fades.